The terrible crash that took place over the Potomac River not only claimed so many precious lives, but also left so many questions in its aftermath. And only days later, yet another plane has crashed in a populated Philadelphia neighborhood.
Good evening. Another plane crash in the United States has claimed at least 6 lives.
Plane just crashed on Cotman Avenue, yo. I was right there, bro. What the Yo, somebody crit. Oh my God, yo, the world, yo. What the Oh, the plane just Oh,
Now, while the legacy media keeps telling us that these are just coincidences and tragedies, I'm going to tell you why these crashes might just be the beginning of a hidden war between our new administration and our deep state overlords. I'm sure most of you have seen this clip of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth explaining what that Black Hawk was doing in that extremely congested airspace.
Routine annual retraining of night flights on a standard corridor for a continuity of government mission. The military does dangerous things. It does routine things on the regular basis. Tragically, last night, a mistake was made. I think the president is right.
I'm sure, just like me, many of you were immediately wondering what he meant by continuity of government. Well, according to FEMA, continuity of government is a coordinated effort within each of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches to ensure that governance and essential functions continue to be performed before, during, and after an emergency. Now, in the beginning, this principle was established to keep the government running in case of a nuclear war. This, however, changed over the years, and I'll show you how some shadow agencies now use this strategic principle to pretty much control everything we see and do. And it all starts with this article from 2020, which states, "Exclusive, inside the military's top secret plans if the pandemic cripples the government." In this article, Newsweek reported, huge swaths of the executive branch or even Congress and the Supreme Court could also be disabled, forcing the implementation of continuity of government plans that include evacuating Washington and devolving leadership to second-tier officials in remote and quarantined locations. The article also revealed that various plans named Octagon, Freejack, and Zodiac were already in place, which would allow military commanders to be placed in control around America. Now, this already sounds pretty scary and sketchy, but things get even worse when you realize what people at Newsweek were too scared to report. In another article written by Whitney Webb, you'll really find out the scary scope of the continuity of government program. In the article, she mentions how the Miami Herald revealed in 1987 that the COG programs of that era were deeply connected to a virtual parallel government outside the traditional cabinet departments and agencies that began operating almost from the day Reagan took office.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster?
Mr. Chairman.
I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir?
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was, but I wanted to get his confirmation.
May I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
She basically marks the late 80s as the time when this shadow government truly took form. She also mentions how in 2008, a reporter named Chris Ketchum revealed insider information in an article. He stated that the government of the United States had a database of so-called unfriendly Americans, and it contained 8 million names. Even scarier is the fact that, according to Ketchum, in the event COG is implemented, these individuals could be subject to anything ranging ranging from heightened surveillance and tracking to direct questioning and possibly even detention. I guess I'm starting to realize why Gitmo is once again in the news.
As the Trump administration begins its first 100 days in office, we are at Guantanamo Bay and we'll be reporting from here at Camp Justice. We'll be inside the courtrooms. We'll have updates on the status of the military trials as well as the detention camps. This new administration is going to have to make some hard choices about the future of this operation.
Well, if you know Miss Harridge, you can be damn sure she's telling us that President Trump needs to do something about these clandestine detention camps. As for why I think that helicopter crash reeks of a COG false flag, here's why. We already know the doomsday plane was right there in the sky at the time of this crash, and surprisingly, our president was not on it, even though he was supposed to be. Then we get this post from President Trump, which states, "The Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high by a lot. It was far above the 200-foot limit." That's not really too complicated to understand, is it? Look, my friends, he doesn't need to post it to get answers. He already knows the answers, and he's just trying to cue us in. And it's not the first time. Let's not forget how he pretty much confirmed our dues theory about the LA fires. And it can't be a coincidence that only a couple of days later, President Trump banned former CIA Director John Brennan from all federal buildings. That's a huge slap to the face of our above-the-law agencies, and then in addition to all of this, we get this statement from Tulsi Gabbard.
Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable.
And we all know how John Brennan feels about her. He can feel however he wants, but it'll be hard even for him to deny this email where he says that he'll be happy to deny the existence of Hunter Biden's laptop to stop Donald Trump in 2020. Now, to me, it just looks like the walls are closing in on these extremely powerful men, and they just can't accept their new reality. And this crash, which doesn't look like any other aerial crash, might be them lashing out. So if you think this fight is going to be easy, you're not in the loop, my friend. And as of right now, President Trump has only really taken the first few steps in his fight to clean house.
He was the key proponent over and over again. Trump, Russia, it's always Brennan. It's always this same cadre. Remember, it doesn't help that they're just out of the CIA. It doesn't even help that their clearances are gone because they have loyalists that are still in the CIA. If you remember Dulles, when he got kicked out of the CIA by Kennedy, they immediately started plotting his death with Project 45. So it's not enough. It's a great start, by the way. I'm applauding the great start of banning all of these conspirators from federal buildings. It's a great start. But now we have to look at the people who they work with, who are defense and military contractors. Kennedy had to worry about I.B. Hale, right? He had to worry about I.B. Hale finding girls and introducing them into the Kennedy White House.
And since it's probably too early to reveal his hand, Mr. President is forced to say things like this.
What is your message then to the American public in the weeks and months ahead? Should they feel hesitant to fly? And if you could clarify perhaps something that the Defense Secretary said when he said that this helicopter was on a continuity of government mission?
I don't know what that refers to, but they were practicing. They do that. They call it practicing, and and that's something that should be done. It's only continuity in the sense that we want to have very good people, and that has to be in continuity, and that's what they refer to. But it was basically practice, and it was a practice that worked out very, very badly. Okay?
If you think a man who has been president before has no idea about the continuity of government program, you're out of your damn mind. It's probably the first thing he's briefed on right after the briefing about the nuclear codes. And while we are on the topic of this crash, we already know the air traffic controllers were likely understaffed and underqualified. Here's Republicans trying to address this issue all the way back in 2023.
Secretary Buttigieg and President Biden's DEI initiatives, which hire and promote people based on their physical characteristics, over their merits and qualifications violate Title VII and the Constitution. In critical public safety roles such as air traffic control, it is essential to have the best possible candidate based strictly on professional qualifications and merit. Efforts by the Biden administration to factor race, gender, and sexual orientation into hiring and promotion decisions puts the traveling public at risk and deepens the staffing shortages we've seen throughout the FAA. Under this administration, we saw the first national ground stoppage since September 11th. My constituents regularly face delays caused by shortages in air traffic control staffing, delays that I'm sure many of my colleagues have also experienced. We must roll back the Biden administration's woke DEI policies and put the needs of our public aviation system before the far left's political agenda.
Unfortunately, no one was listening and wouldn't listen until this issue was connected to more dead Americans. Now, there's another story that I would like to share with you today. I'm sure you know that Senator Marsha Blackburn has been one of the few lawmakers who have tried to reveal the names of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Well, she now has a very strong ally in her crusade for justice.
I want to talk to you about the Epstein case. I have worked on this for years, trying to get those records of who flew on Epstein's plane and who helped him build this international human trafficking, sex trafficking ring. Now, earlier I urged then Chairman Durbin to subpoena those records, and I ended up being blocked by Senator Durbin and Christopher Wray. They stonewalled on this. And I know that breaking up these trafficking rings is important to President Trump. So will you work with me on this issue so we know who worked with Jeffrey Epstein in building these sex trafficking rings?
Absolutely, Senator. Child sex trafficking has no place in the United States of America, and I will do everything, if confirmed as FBI director, to make sure the American public knows the full weight of what happened in the past.
Now, we all know how Senator Durbin tried to stop Senator Blackburn from getting her hands on those client lists.
I understand you made some statements about the Jeffrey Epstein flight logs. I had not spoken to you one time about this issue.
Since we're in the business of issuing subpoenas now, here are a few more that I filed. A subpoena to Jeffrey Epstein's estate to provide the flight logs for his private plane, given the numerous allegations of human trafficking and sexual abuse surrounding Mr. Epstein.
And now he's also trying to stop Kash Patel.
His book, start there. He dropped his playbook. We all have a copy of it. You know what his agenda is. It's very clear.
Are there any circumstances where you could vote for him if he answers some questions satisfactorily?
I doubt it. I've investigated this gentleman. I've read this book twice, which is cruel and unusual, but I've gone through it twice, so I understand what makes him tick. He should not be head of the FBI. Okay?
When you find out that he's had meetings with Bill Gates, it is not hard to understand why he wants to stop Kash Patel. This dinosaur knows what's going to happen to him and his rich friends if Mr. Patel starts investigating Epstein's associates, so he's trying everything he can to stop Mr. Patel from leading the FBI. Now, I don't know what kind of punishment we should have for these deep state actors and child traffickers, but if you have one in mind, feel free to share it with everyone below. As always, thanks for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.